Bar, by the way, you've heard the word bar mitzvah. When you are bar mitzvah, you are son of the law, mitzvah. You have to follow all of those 613 laws that God gave Moses on Mount Sinai. So, now that you know how Hebrew works, let's look at this first word of Genesis 1:1, Bereshit. I've written it big here, but it's the same here. It means in beginning. Okay? Well, each one of these has a picture associated with it. By the way, notice that each of these also have a number associated with it. God deals on levels, and levels, and they all intertwine and connect, and there's sub-themes and themes, and they all interconnect, and everything points to Jesus. Don't believe me? Watch.
Yeah, that's what we've found as well. So, yeah, we agree with some of the things he says. Okay, he, at that time, admits that he was new to the Hebrew, he was learning as he was going. So, yeah, someone else put down in one of his comments, or one of the comments underneath one of those 3 videos, and says, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's got it all wrong. Probably someone who's in the Jewish faith or something like that. You always get one right. Okay, he's probably right, but keep in mind that this guy at that time admitted in one of his 3 videos that he was new to it, he was learning as he was going, and he found these amazing things as he was learning it, right? Okay, so that's the 3 videos of Dutch Uncle John. He's a nice guy. He got a bit anti when someone came at us with this nasty comment, and we stood up to them, he's going to ban us from those comments or something like that, but we worked it out. Says, come on, man. This guy came at us hard with all this crap, right? And we just responded, nicely. There wasn't nothing bad about it, and then he mellowed out. Yes, so we still think he's a great guy, right? Okay, the next one in line is we found this PDF, which you can download from this website for free. Okay, we suggest you use something like what's it called, malware, something from, where is it, malware AI browser security from the Mozilla add-ons, Firefox add-ons, because what it does is it scans it to see if there's any viruses in it. Might help, might not. Okay, but best to be safe, right? Okay, this is saying Genesis 1:1, Jesus, the Hebrew language and the ancient Hebrew pictograph. Okay. The shapes, order and divine power of the Hebrew letter are the DNA of our universe. These letters were created before the foundations of the world, before the universe itself. The Bible itself could be understood to a greater degree through an understanding of the Hebrew language with which God used to write. Okay, so there's the backwards and forwards. It was the Aramaic first. No, it was the Hebrew first. Right, the Aramaic and the Hebrew were basically the same, had the same words, same meanings, all that sort of stuff at that point. The Hebrew was used for all things religious within inside the temple. The Aramaic on the outside for all other things like politics, lunch, dinner, whatever, household. Okay, anything non-holy or religious orientated, right? That's what we've read. And the Hebrew language is read right to left or east to west. This is the direction God favours as reflected in the Bible. Consider the sun as the life of the world. The sun goes east to west. The sun is a picture of Christ, the light of the world. Or symbol, right? Possibly. And here's more information here. Genesis means origin. The Hebrews call it by the first Hebrew word Bereshit. Some say Bereshit in the beginning. It is the book of all beginnings. Genesis contains the seed. Okay, this is in the Hebrew. Okay, who were the Hebrews? They didn't come about until a certain lot of people crossed a certain river or passage. They made a passage across these rivers. In the Aramaic, the word is spelled A-W-E-R, which probably means, when you pronounce it, probably says A-wur or A-ver. We don't know Aramaic. We aren't natural born speakers of it, fluent speakers. So guessing at it right, this is from the footnotes we found in the Brita, translated into English. This is the Genesis, the Brita or Genesis in English, from the translator, native-born Aramaic-speaking translator Victor N. Alexander, and his translations of that, okay, in the footnotes. So, yeah, it wasn't until these people crossed this certain river and they made this passage that they became known as the Hebrews. There is a person spoken of or listed in the Genesis lineage genealogy list, and it's either Heber or Eber, depends on what version you have, and he's supposed to be the forefather of those Hebrews. Abraham wasn't a Hebrew. He was from Ur of Chaldea or Babylonia, which is part of Mesopotamia, Syria. Okay, then he moved from there according to those scriptures and went to the land of Canaan, etc., etc. Then he becomes a Hebrew. Okay, and then later on, the Hebrew nation, or the Israelites, the Israelites are formed. Jacob's sons, etc., his sons' descendants, offspring, etc., their descendants, they became known as the Israelites because Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So, ites, meaning peoples, they were the people of Israel, okay, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so where were we? Genesis means origin. The Hebrews call it by the first Hebrew word Bereshith, in the beginning. It is a book of all beginnings. Genesis contains the seed for all the dealings of God with this world, the principles of the relationships of God with man, and in type anticipates all future revelations of God. All the major doctrines of the Bible are found in the book of Genesis. The book is the foundation upon which the entire revelation of God rests. Yet your Americanized English Bible versions don't go into great depth as these ancient manuscripts do. Right? There's lots and lots and lots that has been left out. Okay? And this would, if you knew this as we present them to you in our videos, then that would free up a lot of your confusions. Okay? Were Adam and Eve the actual first two on the planet? Right? The only ones? As stated by the modern churches, pastors, etc., and their Americanized Bible, English Bible versions that they're reading from, right? They're teaching and preaching from. Okay, where did Cain's wife come from? Okay, was there a pre-Adamic man before Adam? Because it seems like God makes the human being in His image, in His visage, His likeness, has His face, etc., has His countenance, and then there's a second lot of human beings made, okay, that are made from the dirt, from the earth, from the ground. Okay, the first is made in the image of God. It has that spirit of life, so it goes from an inanimate soul to an animate soul. Gets up and walks around, does things, right? But it didn't have that spirit of God. Whereas the second Adam, which was created from the earth, the dirt, the dust, right, had that breath of life, okay, and got up and walked around, etc., etc. Had a soul, okay, which indicates it's all there in the Genesis, right? They went from being an inanimate soul, a lifeless soul, to an animate soul once they had that spirit of life blown in their nostrils, or however it says, right? They became this active living soul and got up and walked around and did these things, right? But there was a difference. These second Adams had that spirit of God, so they could dwell in the presence of God, they could communicate with God, etc., etc., right? And then they knew the difference between good and evil, sin, etc. So apparently they suffered the consequences, etc., etc., where apparently the Neanderthal man, the pre-Adamic man, had no spirit of God, so if he did something wrong, he wasn't aware of it, so he couldn't be tempted and all this sort of stuff, possessed by the devil or whatever, right? Okay, according to this other video that we put up prior to this, right? The Adam's family. Okay, check that one out. Okay, people say, "Oh, what a load of fluff! What a load of nonsense!" But that's what we've found looking at these said original, ancient, very old manuscripts. Okay, dated around the scribes copied it around 800 BCE in Ur, which is now Edessa, modern Turkey. Okay, and these prophets, the Old Testament prophets like Moses, Isaiah, Ezra, etc., actually spoke that sacred scribal old tongue or language, Lishana Artika Supreya, because it's supposed to be the language of God, that God spoke to Adam and Eve, and then he spoke to the men at Babel, building that tower. Okay, that's why they had that one language, and that's what it was, right? Until he confused them by giving them multiple languages and then scattered them everywhere, right, across that region of the earth. Okay. Yeah, so that's where we're getting it from this translation by this translator, who's a native-born Aramaic-speaking translator from Bet Narain, Mesopotamia, or of Syria, right? Okay. The two most commonly attacked books in the Bible are Genesis and Jonah, because that's the creation, the origins, right? The creation account. And Jonah, that's where he went to Nineveh, to the Asherai, right? And they repented and accepted the one true God of Jonah. Revelation is third. Genesis is treated as a story and ridiculed as a big dream. But if you see Genesis as a fairy tale, then the rest of the Bible is a meaningless lie. However, it must be realized that the Bible is a supernatural book. Okay, so spiritual book, not only because of the Spirit of God breathed it into the hearts and minds of its writers, who were scores of men from diverse backgrounds, writers who were separated by thousands of years, but it's also supernatural, spiritual in its divine design. It begs the question, how could men thousands and thousands of years ago, apart from each other, unknowingly write over hundreds of controversial subjects with such great continuity and foresight? Everything in the Bible is inseparably bound up with its first book, Genesis. This is because Genesis gives the origin and initial explanation of all major biblical doctrines. Within this book, there are many revelations. There is the revealing of the three realities, God, man, and God-man. God is revealed to man. The heart of man is revealed. See, like here, God is known by those men in the Old Testament, but he was never seen because you couldn't look upon God and hope to live. That's what Scripture says. Even Moses was afraid to look at God. The heart of man is revealed, his condition, right? Allowing man to see his true sinful state and condition before God, and Jesus Christ is revealed as Messiah, Christ Saviour, Redeemer, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, truth and Lord of all lords, and King of kings, when he is God made incarnate in the flesh, and he came to earth, right, to spread the good news to his disciples, etc., etc. Okay, so in sum, everybody knew in the Old Testament knew about God, but they'd never seen God. Even Christ says in the New Testament, no man has seen God except the Son, because he came from the midst of them, right? Dwelling in the midst of them. And he's God incarnate in the flesh, according to the Scriptures. Okay? If one examines the original Hebrew in which Genesis was written, much about this Messiah can be learned. Hebrew is the language of God. Okay, consider Genesis 1:1. Then the Lishana Atika Supreya wouldn't be the language of God, the old scribal tongue language of God. Okay, they probably both were at that point because they had the same words with the same meanings until somewhere along the way, maybe through the Masoretes, it was modified. Okay, and they added vowels, that dot system, etc., which not only changed the structure of that language, but also the words. So, for example, again, you have the word in the Aramaic, Brita, for eon, right, which translates as immeasurable period, unfathomable period, era, age, eon, day with a capital D. Okay? Whereas in the Hebrew, you would have yom, which might say day, but might have a little d, and they'll tell you, well, that's because the day in that context was like a literal day, 12 hour day, with a 12-hour night period, right, as we know it today. But with the Aramaic Yuma, it's very, very different. It's like, as we said, translated, it means immeasurable period, unfathomable period, era, eon, day with a capital D, which is very, very different. It's in relationship to the lunar solar cycle, the moon and the sun, right? And that era, eon, age, right, which is not a 12 to 24 hour day at that point. Okay, remember the scripture that 1,000 years, or a day is like 1,000 years to God, or 1,000 years is like a day to God, right? Okay, keep those in mind. And there's a vast difference there. The Aramaic had a vowel, A, but it was more like a consonant, right? Okay, whereas the latter Hebrew added the vowels, possibly to make it more pronounceable, readable, etc. Okay, that's what we've heard from and seen written, heard from Jews, people in the Jewish faith, and also others that have written about it, right, online. Okay, so Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created heaven and earth. We don't know what version they're using, right? But here they're stating, in the beginning God created heavens and earth, meaning that there's only one God, God the Father. Okay, whereas in the Aramaic it says in the beginning, and it hints at as the beginning in that language. He was that beginning. The Son of God, or the Muta, the manifestation, created the heavens and the earth. Compare it with John 1 verse 1 to 3, and you'll see in your Americanized Bible version it'll say, or someone will say in footnotes, the translator, whatever, it comes from the Greek word logos, which equals word, but that's an incorrect translation. Plus there's more to the word. Yeah, sure, Christ was the word, but there's more meaning to it than that. Plus it's a wrong interpretation or translation. Okay, so compare those two, Genesis 1 verse 1 with John 1 verse 1. Okay, and which says that Christ, the Son of God, was the creator of the heavens and the earth and all that came forth from that creation. Okay, and he's the Aleph and the Tav. You have the first and the end, the beginning and the last, and you have in the Greek Alpha and Omega, which is actually incorrect. Okay? And there's more here, and they give a demonstration of the Hebrew word emet, saying it has a more concrete meaning than the English word for truth. The English word derives from the Greek Western view of truth as a form of correspondence between language and reality, but invariably languished over epistemological, the branch of philosophy, and etc., etc. Supposedly, Herodotus explains the meaning of logos as the truth. Not the word, but the truth. But you could say, yeah, okay, Christ is the word, he's the truth. You can fit it into that, right? People get around that one day. Okay, you're not too sure what where they're getting this from. The translation is probably some sort of Jewish rendering, probably from probably a Jewish site, Hebrew site here, indicated here, and so forth. Hebrew is one of the earliest alphabetical languages. Ancient Hebrew was originally a pictograph-based system, but later developed into the Hebrew we are more familiar with today. What's the one today? Probably Israeli Hebrew, okay, the modern version. Yet the pictograph system is still regarded important as it can give us further revelation and insight into the meaning of certain passages. Okay, we'd have to discuss this with a down-to-earth person in the Judaic faith. You get one that's not going to go, oh, you're this, you're that, and throw insults at us. It's good to sit down with people that they can explain it to you calmly, collectively, right? They don't have to resort to insults. Oh, you're a stupid Christian and all this stuff, right? Make assumptions that are totally false. Okay, as goes on about the pictographically, this pictographically represents, read from left to right, Aleph, etc., etc., signifies an ox, as Uncle John said in this video that we looked at. Like other ancient writing systems, the Hebrew alphabet originally was written using a pictograph script. Later, the pictograms evolved into a Hebrew script, sometimes called Paleo-Hebrew, what's that, Palestinian Hebrew, that strongly resembled the ancient Phoenician alphabet. And that's what a lot of these rabbis today are saying, that that's what they're using. This Hebrew that stems from the ancient Phoenician alphabet. This was the Hebrew, Katav Ivri, used by the Jewish nation up to the Babylonian exile, or according to Orthodox Jews, until the exodus from Egypt. Examples can be found on coins and clay. Okay, fragments called ostraka. Okay, so you look at that online, verify that as fact. We think that probably is from the coins, collection of coins that we've seen online. Today, both the Torah and newspapers use modernized, see, is the word here, modernized renditions of the Aramaic style script. Don't know if that's the square one or the other one, or any other one. Though everyday correspondence is written using Hebrew cursive. Okay? So it's modernized. It's not the original ancient. Okay? Used way back in Moses' days, or the Old Testament prophet days, right? Okay. More on Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo-Hebrew was completely abandoned around the time of the destruction of the Second Temple in the year 70 CE. Except for the inscriptions on a few ancient Jewish coins, no remnant of Paleo-Hebrew remained. Okay, so there's no remnant of it, according to this. The Babylonian Talmud, Sanhedrin 21b, has a pertinent discussion about these two forms of Hebrew writing. The lost script is called Ivri or Paleo-Hebrew. Our familiar Hebrew script is known as Asheri or Assyrian script. There you go. But they're trying to match that Hebrew script to be known as Asheri or Assyrian script. Okay, we realise that's possibly incorrect. We'll check on that in a moment. Around the year 800 BC, Paleo-Hebrew letters became reworked. Okay, they were reworked. Okay, worked again. Right? That's what it's saying there. Re means again. In Babylon and the surrounding reign, and evolved as the native Aramaic script. Around 275 years later, about 525 BC, the Jews in Babylon, notably Ezra the scribe, refined the native Aramaic letters and developed Asheri, the script recognized today as Hebrew. Okay, well that doesn't seem right according to the information we have. It could be, it might not be. Okay, is this real or is this false? Because this Asheri is of the Asherai people. Okay, those of Nineveh, those of Assyria. Okay, so we will have a look at some information on that in a second from the translator, and then they say some more here. Here's the Hebrew text. The ancient Hebrew alphabet had been resurrected from the dead. Paleo, Samaritan, Square Hebrew, English name. Okay, and it continues.